I'm very interested in that. So,
all right, we're going live, gentlemen.
Okay.
So hush your mouth. We're live now. Check your YouTube. All right, everybody, welcome to the second. Stop talking, Anthony. So welcome to the second week of the hybrid live show, going a little bit earlier on the East Coast this time, but early enough so that the folks over in England can be awake and enjoy this. And I'm kidding, by the way. I don't yell like that like Anthony. He knows I love him. He's also known today as Positive Splits for Life. But let's first check in with Ian all the way in the United Kingdom. What is up, Ian K., host of the UK HYROX podcast?
Everything's great, Matt. Had dinner already and just sitting down to get to know Anthony a bit better, because we were discussing earlier, we've never met before, and it's always great to see you, Matt. Yeah, it just makes my week.
Well, last week Anthony had never been on with Dave before, so I'm bringing everybody together.
Absolutely, and yeah, Positive Splits for Life, Anthony, however you want to be called. Pleased to meet you, and thank you for all you do in this sport.
You too, Ian. Wow. I like listening to your podcast and everything too.
Well, listen, we're here to dominate. We're here to take over the hybrid world. And as you can see, I'm back on StreamYard after many years. I'm back on StreamYard so we can do fun graphics and have the chat going. Are we live on YouTube? Did people hear me yell at you?
Yeah, it's up.
Good.
Yeah.
What are you gonna say?
I'm just glad it's working this time. My thing's working. Yeah, I'm glad you gave me topics to discuss before this one, because I got 2 pages.
Not only do we have topics based on my amazing research, digging into the amazing High Result website, but I made some a graphic, immersive top 10 list we're going to mess with, because we have to talk about Race Brain did a little thing called the Goofy bracket.
It was the foolish bracket. That's what
the foolish bracket.
It was April Fool's Day, and they did the foolish bracket.
Yeah. And so before we get into the who's going to Cologne, I want to actually do that, because I know you've got some very, very big thoughts. I have 2 big thoughts. Let me rephrase that. I have 1 big thought, but I want your big thought to go first, because there was a certain item on their list that they put in their suite. Was it 12 or 16?
16. I think it was
16. And one of those topics was the HYROX Elite 12, which Anthony could not agree less with. He didn't believe it even belonged in there. So tell people why HYROX Elite 12 was neither goofy nor foolish. Give people context of the time. Give us all a little history.
Okay, so I'll start off. I went through their list. Some of them I agree with, some of them I don't. I mean, there were other things in there. I have topics here that I wrote down, like things they could have put in there besides some of these other ones that probably should have been.
Let's just
we can get to that.
Hold that thought. Yeah.
Okay. Instead, I'll give a little context, because a lot of people in the sport now weren't around in 2020 when HYROX was in its second season, and they don't know everything that was going on and why the Elite 12 was the Elite 12. So just to start with, it wasn't an invite. It people qualified for it, and there was 1 male and 1 female that were invited, and they needed that. And so I'll go over just a little bit. So everybody knows, in March of 2020, the world closed down, and just like every professional sport, the NBA, the NFL, MLB, NHL, they had an abbreviated season. Soccer teams all around the world, same thing. Their seasons were shortened, and so they all adjusted. They all pivoted because the world shut down with COVID. So just for an example, Major League Baseball at that time was they only took the top 1 and 2 people in the division at that point to go on to their playoffs, right? The NBA was like, well, we're going to adjust our playoffs and we're going to invite these 24 teams to the playoffs because they're all within 6 games and we have to shorten our season. But basically every professional sports team did that. So HYROX did an awesome job. They adapted and they were able to still hold their world championship. The way they did that is in May of 2020, they said, okay, since we had to cancel all our other races, everybody with a top 4 time, or I think at that time they said the top 5 time, to this point, you qualified for the world championships. So you can accept your spot and we're going to hold it in June. And then that got canceled for travel reasons. People you couldn't make it. So that one was canceled. And then they had their home series, I think like a little bit before that. And then they did the very first VCF. And at the beginning of the first VCF, they said, okay, the winner of the VCF gets an invite. You qualify for the world championships. Even if you've never run HYROX before, if you win the VCF, you go to the world championships in 2020. They held the VCF and then they
I can tell you the finals of the VCF were produced live, right? They streamed it. And it was Lauren Weeks and Ahea Church.
So it was
and Lauren
Sarah
lost, right?
It was Sarah Colte, it was Lauren, it was E. Schurch, and it was Morgan Schultz.
Oh, that's right. It was 4 square. There was 4 people.
4 squares. That was the very first VCF. They did a workout.
And they brought me on. I feel like I was part of that live feed.
Were you part of that one or the second one?
Dude, they so run together. There was 2 VCFs?
There was 2 VCFs.
I might have done a watch along for the second. I know there was one where the other Flo was on and maybe Mo, and they just brought me on for like a few minutes, or maybe HYROX was on one. Am I merging the 2? Anyway, just talk about this one.
Okay. So in the first VCF, sorry, I lost my. Okay. In the first VCF, they went through, they had a rowing workout in the final, and E. Schurch, who was a multi-times CrossFit Games athlete, she won, as well as Marcus Friesen. He won for the men. So those 2 qualified for the World Championships. So now the World Championships, that this time was going to take place in October, and invites were sent out in September. They were the top 4 times and the VCF winner. Then the championships got canceled again for travel reasons. So in later October, they said, okay, we are going to hold it this time. We'll pay for you guys to travel. And we have this special certificate from our German embassy that says you have to be here for a professional sport. They sent out invites. And this time they sent out a wild card invite to 2 adjacent sport athletes, 1 male, 1 female. And that was Adam Klink, who had just set the 5-minute mile and 500-pound world, first person to do it. And he also did 50 pull-ups in a day. So he had a lot of hype around him. And Sam Briggs, who was the 2013 CrossFit Games champion. And everybody, if you talk to anybody in CrossFit and you say, oh, who would dominate a HYROX? A lot of them would say, oh, Sam Briggs. So that was the 6 invites. And so it was 6 women, 6 men. You can't invite everyone because of all the travel restrictions. So it came out to that. And I'm just going to go through the list real quick of the men who competed and then what they did afterwards, right? So if you think there's anybody that's not on this list that should have been, let me know. But here's who was invited. Hunter McIntyre was the number 1 seed. He had the top overall time and held the world record. He wins the 2020 event, right? Lucas Storath, who was the 2019 world champion, had the 2nd fastest time. Since then, Lucas has competed in the majors in 2024, not all of them, but just the last 2. And he will compete in Cologne, and he took 2nd in that Elite 12. Tobias Lotwin was the 3rd seed. Tobias had the 3rd best HYROX time of that season. He won the World Championships in 2021. He took third place in 2023, and he's still trying to compete for his spot at this year's World Championships. And he took third in 2020. The fourth seed was Tim Schroeder, who at the time had the fifth best HYROX time. And also, Tim competed in the 2021 World Championships. The fifth seed was Marcus Friesen. Marcus Friesen was the winner of the 2020 VCF, and that's how he got invited to the World Championships. He finished in last place in the Elite 12, but he also competed in the World Championships by qualifying the next year in 2021. And then the sixth seed was Adam Klink, who got the wild card invite, but he wasn't a factor in the race. He ended up in fifth out of six. Right. So who on that list, like who missed out, you know?
Back then?
What? Back then, who missed out?
No one else good. No one else good was in the sport yet.
No, I mean, I think there's one person that missed out, and that would be Alex Ronkovic.
Okay,
who podiumed at 2019. But if you go back and look at that time, Alex Ronkovic had like the sixth or seventh best time from that season before everything got canceled. He had already run 2 races.
I didn't want to say no one else was good. I was saying the point is that it did what it was supposed to do. We got the best people in the sport at the time.
Yep, I agree. And Alex, since he didn't have a top time, he still could have qualified if he would have done the VCF and won. That was the way. That was should have been his route.
Who are the women?
And then the women. This is surprising. Like, so I'm going to read you the women, and it's the number 1 seed at the time was Sarah Colte, who was the world record holder at the time, who still holds the longest consecutive world record streak. She held the world record for 543 days or something like that.
We're talking World Wrestling Federation kind of stats. That's the kind of shit we love.
And she won, or she was 4th place in 2021. She was 8th place in 2022, and she was 3rd in the Elite 12. Like, so she was someone big in the sport at the time, obviously. The 2nd seed was Linda Meyer. Everybody knows who Linda Meyer is. She is podiumed at every major this year. She was 2nd in 2022. And during the Elite 12, she actually dropped out at the ski erg, and I rewatched it, and it said that she dropped out due to shin splints on the first run. So she ended up DNFing in the race. You were going to say something, Matt?
No, I was going to say, was this the year on the runners?
Yes, and I'll get to that. Yeah. And the 3rd seed going into the event was Viola Oberlander, who also has already qualified for Worlds this year, who was 2nd in 2021, 7th in 2022, and 5th in 2023, went to all 4 majors this year, and was 2nd in the Elite 12. So obviously another person who definitely belonged. And then the 4th seed going into the event was Lauren, who I think everybody knows what she's done so far. No, she took 1st in 2021, 9th in 2022. Well, 8 months pregnant, 1st in 2023, and 1st in 2020. And then the 5th seed would have been E. Church, who won the VCF. And she was invited, but she had declined her invite. So it rolled down to who had the 5th or 6th fastest HYROX time from that season, and that was Rebecca Nader. She couldn't compete because she had an issue with her heart before the night before the race started. But she was 2nd at the 2019 World Championships. She raced in the Washington, D.C. major. She won the 2023 doubles World Championships with Miriam Van Roer, and she's going to race in Cologne. And then the 6th seed was Sam Briggs, who was the wildcard invite, who I already talked about, but she took last place of those who finished.
Right, which I was happy to point out when those guys on Talking Elite Fitness said that she would crush a HYROX and beat all of our people.
Yeah, well, I mean, I still think she did good. So, like you said, the race though, they had to adapt the race, and they had these other runners to start with, but these other runners were not good. There was some issue with them the day before when all the athletes tested them. So HYROX again, really did a great job, adapted, and went out and got a bunch of assault runners, 6 assault runners for their athletes, so that they can actually run the race. And like a lot of positives came out of this, I think came out of this race. First, it was the first time we saw the shortened ropes and sleds. So instead of having a 25-meter course, it went down to 12.5, which I think everybody can agree that's way better, right?
Right.
It's also the first time we ever saw this like grid format. So the viewability of it, and the Elite 12 was absolutely the best production HYROX had done, right up until Manchester or Worlds last year, I'd say. And it was a great production. They had 2 weeks to produce it because the athletes raced in mid-December and it came out January 1 of 2021. But it was still, I think it was a fantastic event. And I don't think there's anybody else that you would have qualified for it or that would have gone to it.
Well, I'll
up to that point.
I'll flip that slightly, Anthony. Yeah, there probably was other racers, but there's no one amongst those 12 that you'd say they don't belong, they need to be substituted out for someone. Because, yeah, you could probably make an argument if they went to the Elite 18, there were probably other racers who could have got a spot. But yeah, that is still a who's who of HYROX athletes, even today.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
I still maintain that Sam Briggs, if she was just 10 years younger, would have absolutely crushed it, because she's British and everyone knows that British athletes are awesome.
I agree. The British athletes are great.
All right. So I was gonna talk about a couple of other things on that list, but it's a lot of OCR stuff, and I'd rather actually save that. I think we should focus more on the hybrid stuff on the front end. And so there
was one that can we also talk about? They kicked off a little bit about DEKA movement standards. I think that was on the list too, which was quite interesting. Because I have
what did you want to say? What did you want to say about that?
Their number 4 seed was DEKA movement standards.
Yeah, what I want to say is I have this on a recording I did. NFL, how many times does it change its rules? How many times?
Every year.
Every year. So why are we beating up on DEKA for adapting its movement standards once a year? I don't understand why it got why it got the 4th seed. People are expecting these races to be perfect out the box, and football's been going 100 years.
I think part of that, Ian, is that if we're going to adjust the rules or adjust the standards, why do we have records? There shouldn't be world records if you're changing the race or changing the standards for it.
What about NFL wide receiver yards?
Oh, same thing. They do it based on era. So this era,
Exactly. And eventually you'll say you have the world record in this era. I know it's a bit silly at the moment because it's kind of condensed and each area is like but I see no issue with them adjusting the standards. Yeah, the standards are going to make people slightly slower, whereas the football standards are making it more exciting. They've just changed it so you can no longer tackle properly, or if you believe and all that. But
records got set this past year, and I didn't really hear anybody say, by the way, they have an extra game than 2 years ago. They're not really talking about it that way. Well, maybe as we get further down, but now you guys are getting into this minutia. They're going to say, listen, we just picked a number arbitrarily. Like, we had to pick a number and we put it in there. So I wanted to talk about the thing that I want to take out, which I'll get to in a minute. And then you were very upset about that. The rankings were in there. The Elite 12 is in there at all. And so I wanted you to say your piece on that.
I wouldn't say I was upset. I just wanted to clarify what it was. But I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 other things that probably could have been put in there that to me are foolish. And so one of those things, like you were talking about, Ian,
are they OCR or hybrid related?
They're all hybrid.
Okay. Well, I still want to save it. So you got to trust me on this one, buddy. Let's because I got a lot to say about that, but that could end up taking 2 hours, and I want to make sure we cover what we need to cover. So I want to talk about your weekend.
My weekend?
Yeah.
Right.
Your amazing positive splits.
Yeah. So I positive split. I don't know if it's a hybrid thing or if I just made it up myself, but I tried to determine if I'm a hybrid athlete, right? So I ran a sub 3-hour marathon and bench pressed 315 pounds in the same day. So it's a sub 3-hour and a 3-wheel bench press. And I actually did it 3 hours apart too. So if you want to do the 3-3-3.
Well, I mean, I think it's got to be within 5 hours, let's say, of the thing. You can't just you can't race at 8 in the morning and then do it at like 7 the next morning or something. I like the idea of keeping it close, but if you want to go 3-3-3, Anthony said he doesn't want to issue a challenge, but I'm going to call it the Perissini. I don't know anybody else who's talked about it or who's doing it. So if you go out there and knock that out, if you want to try that, Bracken, give it a whirl, right? Or Rich, go for it. So just sign up for any marathon and then just make sure it's close to a gym afterwards.
So I just want to clarify though. So I ran and I knew this marathon was going to be fast. I was actually planning on running
downhill.
A
it's like Hunter McIntyre style. It's downhill.
I ran a downhill marathon. It had 5,100 feet of elevation loss. So
Okay.
we started at 7,650 feet of elevation and finished at like 2,550. So it was there. There were 3 little sections of like uphill, and it started with a little uphill, which is kind of annoying, but otherwise it was just going down. So I just want to say, I think anybody can go out and run and do a marathon, and just for anybody out there that might be afraid or daunted by the fact of what the marathon is or what they can run now, how hard it might be. I just want to give a little background on what I did. So in 2019, I had back surgery, and up to 2022, I thought I would never come close to how fast I could run before I had back surgery, and all this. And then in Thanksgiving of 2022, right after the DEKA World Championships that were in New Jersey, we went to Lauren's parents' house in New York, and we ran a 5K. And at that 5K, I was like a 23:50 or 23:30 for the 5K. So not particularly fast. That's almost 8-minute miles for it. And then, but my first mile was like a 6:50. Put that into perspective. My first mile there was a 6:50. I just ran a whole marathon at a 6:50 average. I did the Hybricon Games qualifier last year, and one of the qualifiers was a 1 mile run for time. I tried it twice on a track to get the fastest mile I could, and both times I hit a 6:33 mile as the fastest I could run for a single mile. And then I did the Spartan Palmerton race 3K last July, and I was at 40th place out of 45 people who ran. And I think 3 or 4 of those people that finished behind me was because they got 10-minute penalties. If you want to talk about bad Spartan penalties, they got 10-minute penalties that put them behind me. They didn't finish behind me, right? I think I only actually beat 1 or 2 people. So, and then this last year, I started actually running and training for it. Finished a 5K on Thanksgiving of 2023 in 1908. Then I ran a half marathon in January, finished in 1:29. And that half marathon had like a 2.5 mile uphill, 4 miles on trail, and then was like undulating most of the rest of it. And I won the half marathon for the men. I was second overall to my wife. But then I ran another 5K, and then I ran this marathon, and the ability just you can get faster pretty quickly. And so I just want people to know, just keep running.
Well, I think that's great advice. And I think you're also really good proof of concept that you can do it completely wrong, and not pace yourself properly. Because I was looking at your, Anthony said, "Hey, do you want to get my updates?" I'm like, "Absolutely." And so usually that first mile out of the gate, always too fast, but then we settle in. But Anthony did not. So every time I got an update, it gave me his 5K, his 10K, his whatever 12K. Like it kept giving me updates, and it kept saying, here's estimated finish time, and that estimated finish time just kept creeping up there. So yeah, so try to keep it down, and then you don't freak out. And then when you're freaking out, now you're trying to run even harder. And you said you were redoing the math every mile, which is really hard. So yeah, try to, like you said, you had to go. What was the ideal pace for sub 2?
So
sub
for
sub 3?
sub 3 hours, you have to run a 6:52 mile average.
Right. So why didn't you stay like at 6:55 or 7 even?
I would have died. I had to bank time. I knew what I was going to do. So
But
I
you
approached,
can't though. Sometimes that doesn't work.
right.
Like you call
I
it
knew I
banking
was going to be
time, but then
fading.
you blow up at mile,
So
19 or
I
23.
know. Well, I did. And on this marathon, so training for this marathon, if you look back, it's been years since I've ever ran. I looked at my training log. I have not ran a single session longer than 14 miles in the last 3 months, but not even in the last few years. And I didn't run any single day more than 16 miles in a single day while training for this marathon. So it was not I didn't have long runs to bank on for it. And
Right, but
when I ran
none of that means don't run conservatively,
well,
so that you have some at the end in case you bonk. I'm just glad you
so
made it.
I
I'm just glad you didn't go over the time
yeah,
limit.
in this marathon, the way I took it was I looked at it as, okay, I have to run 8 5Ks, and then I have about 2,200 meters left to finish. And so if you run like a 21:25K, that's exactly the pace you have to run the entire time. And I was like, well, if I run my first 3 5Ks at 20 minutes apiece, then that saves me 3 minutes, and I can run a 9-minute mile as the last mile and still make it.
So did that happen?
Well, what happened is, yeah, I ran a 20-minute, a 20-minute, a 20-minute, and then like a 21-minute, and then a 21:30 or a 21-minute and a 21. And I was watching my 5K pace, and my last 2 5Ks were like 23 minutes apiece. And when I finished towards the end, my last mile was an 8-minute mile, and then I had like 2 minutes to get 0.2, and I saw how far away it was, and I didn't think I was going to make it, but I ended up just being like, just go for it. Ended up finishing in 2 hours, 59 minutes.
Maybe you could hire me as your run coach, because I tried to. It took me 3 years for me to get my sub 2 half, but on the day that I got it, I fucking nailed it. I was supposed to run, I think it was 9:04s, and so I tried to go a little bit, I think, slower or a little bit faster the first couple, and then I just nailed it. And I ended up getting a 2:57 and change, because the last 2 I just ran my fucking heart out, but my splits were fucking dead on. So if you want me to be your pacing coach, you can give me a buzz.
Well, so the thing about like a downhill marathon, especially, is the first 22 miles was literally like a 4% grade. So if you talk about a 4% grade, that is a ton of impact on your quads and your knees. And so running downhill like that, when I got to that 22nd mile, 23rd mile, where the marathon then became flat and had us like go up and over a bridge and stuff, I didn't have anything to give there. Everything was so beat up and just damaged at that point. It was pretty rough. So,
all right, Ian, I'm gonna you have to ask him a question, because I have to go deal with something out here. Hang on.
So you mentioned you did your marathon. What did you lift straight after? Sorry, Anthony, I was paying attention, but I can't recall what you lifted.
Yeah, so I went. I almost passed out after the marathon. I went late in the car. My mom drove me home. I sat in a hot tub for about an hour, and then ate some food. And then my sister, we went to the gym, and I went and bench pressed 315 pounds.
What is your usual bench press? Well, what's your 1 rep max usually?
So lifetime, my lifetime bench press is 365. That's the most I've ever benched. 1 pound for every day of the year. And then last year, my max was 355. Like I had built up again and got to about 355, and I was going to try and like go to 400, but I got like a pain in my armpit, and I was afraid I was going to tear my pec, so I stopped like bench pressing for a while, and I kept with it. I don't know what my max would be right now. Went to the gym and I did 315 after the marathon. I did 325, but my spotter grabbed the bar early because I like stalled, but probably still would have kept pressing it. So right now, if I was fresh, I could probably hit like a 330, 335.
So was the goal just to lift above 300 then?
315. My goal is to get above. So that's because that's 3 plates on the bar, 3 blues.
No, that makes sense. And yeah, over in the UK, we don't always have the blues and the yellows and that. So UK listeners, it's a lot of weight.
I think it's 142 kilos.
Wow. That's almost as much as I weigh. I am kidding, listener. I'm absolutely kidding on that. It's almost what I used to weigh back in the day. So you did that. So is this Saturday or Sunday?
That was all Saturday.
So what did you do Sunday?
So I flew back home from Las Vegas to Salt Lake on Saturday night. Got stuck on the tarmac, and that was pretty rough because I was seizing up in my legs. All day Sunday, I pretty much worked on the computer and played with my baby. Hung out with Lauren and Lily.
Oh, so a lovely Sunday afternoon. Well, Sunday day. It sounds like. But did you? I'm going to ask you about your recovery. When you got back from the flight, what exactly did you do? Like,
so when I got back from the flight, it was about 1 a.m. So I tried to get some more food and then went to sleep. Slept in as late as I could. And then as far as recovery, I just been doing like some stretches and stuff. We have a lot of stairs in our house, so going up and down the stairs is pretty miserable. So just doing stuff to move. Yesterday was actually, it's been a while. It's the second day this year where I've done no working out in the day. So it's only the second day of this year that I've done that. Today, I'm probably going to sit down and either row or bike for like 45 to 50 minutes just to like flush everything out. We have some recovery tools. Like we have a Compex and some scraping tools and a Hypervolt. Probably attack my legs with that later this afternoon just to get it going. See if I can get some blood flow in them.
my physio the other day used a scraper on my shoulder for the first time ever, and it felt immense. I didn't realize how good those things are.
Yeah, you scrape out that metabolic waste that accumulates, smooth that muscle down. They're fantastic.
I found since moving to more HYROX style movements, my left shoulder just gets really sore just under the shoulder blade. There's very little I can do about it. It's bizarre. I blame the run burpees. I absolutely blame the run burpees for it. But yeah, it's bizarre. But yeah, scraper and that. And you mentioned you got back at 1 a.m. Looking for food. So was that takeout in Salt Lake City, or did you just go home and whatever was in?
Yeah, I just tried to eat whatever I could find in the house.
Because Salt Lake City doesn't appear to me to be a party city, if I'm honest.
No, it's not. And actually, I found nowhere was. So I grew up in Las Vegas where I could go out. I remember being in high school and stuff, and we could go out anytime and get food from anywhere. There's so many 24-hour places, like it's always open. When I moved away for college, I went up to Oregon. I remember one of the first weeks I was there, I was hungry at like 9 p.m. and I went to go find food and nothing was open. It's just like a culture shock when you don't realize that places don't stay open past 8 o'clock anywhere else.
Yeah, that would be a culture shock to me because again, in the UK, we've got the equivalent of DoorDash and all that, and because we're so small, we could literally drive from one side of the country to the other before it gets dawn to go and find some food. But yeah, I think I found that when I went visiting America in Pensacola, places shut really early. It's bizarre.
Yeah, I mean, this was like I was referring to like back 13, 14 years ago. Well, 17 years ago when I graduated high school, but it was yeah, places just didn't stay open. We didn't have DoorDash and Grubhub to order food from either. So
All right,
No,
let us
absolutely not.
dive in. Let us dive into Cologne, the
Correct.
first of two last chance qualifiers. Ian, do we know how many spots are available for the men and women of this race?
Yeah, the men, we have, I believe, just one spot, so the overall winner will get it. In terms of the women, I believe, and Anthony, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe it is 3 at this one, and it will be 4 in Anaheim.
Yep, that's right.
I think that's the way it's worked. So it makes it two very, very interesting and different races because the men kind of have to go all out, and you could blow up early if you try and press that advantage. Whereas for women, you perhaps have a bit more of a tactical game of yes, it'll be good to win, build that confidence, but you also have a little bit of potential for dropping back and just taking second and third if you need to.
Yep.
All right. Is that large enough for you guys?
Zoom in a little bit, Matt, if you can.
Yeah, I can't see that.
Okay.
And if we can't, then the viewers have no chance.
How about that?
There we
Yeah,
go.
that's perfect.
All right. So here's what I did. I did my best Anthony Perissini, and I thought, what do we want to know about these people? Well, we might want to know their best time. And then I put where that best time was. And then I thought it might be interesting if we put where that time actually got them, which kind of gives you a general idea of the course. So if Alina Vilnau's best time ever was a 103, but that was actually only good enough for 6th in Stockholm, it tells you that it was a pretty competitive race, and that what was the other thought I had?
Well, Alina in that race was 1 spot away from world qualifier because that was where Michaela earned her qualifier. So Alina was Michaela and Rebecca got the qualifiers there in 4th and 5th. So, you know, that she's got to be one of the favorites to earn a qualifier at this Cologne race.
So
I definitely agree there.
So there are women that by the way, this is all of our best intel based on my hundreds of thousands of relationships in the obstacle and hybrid world, how we came to this information. And some of these people are technically scheduled to go to both at this time, but if they make it, if a European makes it, I doubt they're coming. Why would they come to?
Yeah,
right?
They wouldn't go to Anaheim.
So we're just going to focus on who's coming to Cologne. And then if we scroll down a little more, we see who's scheduled to go. In case you're asking about Camilla, Amy, Maria, Tara, Morgan, these are all Americans except for Maria, who's Canadian. But so this is who. This is who we understand is going. Earlier, I had Camilla in there incorrectly. So who else do you watch out for this race?
So, well, I just had one question about the Anaheim because you showed Anaheim. Is she going to go to Anaheim? Does anybody know? Is she out for the season with an injury, or do you think she'll be healed in time to qualify for Anaheim?
The last I've talked to her, she's like taking it easy, reassessing. So I didn't specifically ask about Anaheim, but I don't have her going as of now.
Okay. I was just curious about that. Sorry. Ian, who do you got? Who do you have as the best Briton?
Well, I've got a slight correction for you, Matt. Antje Hardies, she's not going to be there this weekend. She's focused on Anaheim. As far as I'm aware, I'm sure I saw that on a post somewhere. So she won't be there this weekend. In terms of the others, Matt, Manchester 23, Kate Davey, is that a mistake? Is that not Manchester 24, I think?
You know, you guys are really going to piss me off if all you're going to do is tell me that I'm wrong.
No. There is a reason I'm asking this question, because Manchester 24 and indeed Manchester 23 were hard races. I don't really want to go into this whole easy or tough course. That's what race brain we're talking about. But Manchester was a tough race, and for Kate to put down a 104 or 9 there, that would probably have translated to a 103 in Stockholm. I'm not sure if it would translate to a 103.41, but it would have definitely translated to quite a fast time in Stockholm. Okay, so we have that, and Kate is getting better every time she races.
You are correct.
Cool, but yeah, so Kate is someone to keep an eye on. Also amongst those, you're very astute to go to Alina. She is a fantastic racer, Anthony, but you already know that. Let's have a look at the other people down there. Katie is an interesting one, because amongst all these other racers, Katie is the only one I'm aware of who raced last weekend. Whereas all these other racers,
and she's an American.
Canadian.
Yeah, she
Canadian, sorry. She's a North American athlete. Sorry, Katie.
Are you just claiming? Is this like where English people claim Scottish racers when they do well? Like good old Graham, he's a United Kingdom racer. Unless he loses, then he's Scottish. It's just the way it goes. But
why would
those, like, stop?
Go ahead.
No, you had a question there. I'm curious.
Well, Anta's not American. Why would she skip this one?
I don't know, but I was of the opinion, based on what I've seen online, that I think she may be aiming for Anaheim.
All right. Well,
but my intel might be dodgy. My intel might be dodgy too. So it doesn't matter. Should we let's just go through them. Jade Skillen has been another mainstay of a race, Anthony. She's possibly one of the first British women to actually take on a HYROX. Don't know for sure. She had a great race. She actually did have an invite, didn't she, to Washington, and she decided to concentrate solely on this race. So that's could be interesting. Dubai was a fast race, but so was Stockholm. Stockholm seemed like a fast race.
I agree, but also in Dubai,
obviously, like I don't remember who came in second, because that wasn't, because when Lauren went, did Lauren go to what do you call it? Not Dubai, the other one.
So in Dubai in September last year, Lauren, Michaela, and then Jess Toll are the ones that were top 3, and Jade, I think, was 4th. Jade ran like a 110, 111 in September, and then when she went to Dubai earlier this year, she was 1st. She beat Jess Toll and improved by over 8 minutes. And even if you think the course was a minute and a half fast, she still improved by 6.5 minutes. And even if the course was, I mean, I don't think it was, but say at worst it was like a minute and a half fast, that's still a 104, which is considerably fast for these women. And I made picks for this race just for myself, and I think Jade and Alina are 1-2, and I think you're gonna be looking at like Rebecca, Jess, Jezebel, and Miriam fighting for 3rd.
Yeah, so looking at, by the way, these results I got from this amazing website, highresult.com, which has basically break it down any single way you want to break it down. Every race, every division, find people's PBs, then look at their zones. It's pretty great. So looking at Jade, November 23, London, a 106.01, Manchester 24, so 2 months later, 106.45. Then that Dubai time of 102.36.
And that plays into what I was saying earlier about how impressive Kate's time was in Manchester, because she beat Jade by 2 minutes.
Yeah.
So don't sleep on Kate. But Jade, as I understand it, has actually concentrated a lot on improving as an athlete because she's a great coach as well. And Anthony, as I'm sure you know, you can't do it all, can you?
No.
You can't be a fantastic coach and a fantastic athlete and run a business. Some things have to take a back seat at times. I think Jade has kind of gone in a little bit. But saying all of that, I don't think she was intending for Elite 15 this year. So she's playing with house money.
Yeah, and that's dangerous. Like that means, she might just be someone to contend with going out for the race. If you're playing like you don't expect to be there and you can run a race being like, well, I can go for broke because I wasn't expecting this anyway. She's not going to, I doubt she would play it conservative and just be like, I'll just be happy finishing in 5th. Like she probably would be like, I'm going to go see what I can do in the race. And same thing, like Alina has been really consistent. She's always in that like 6 to 8 range at all the majors. Really, if there was roll down past 5th place, she might have got it at like 2 of the majors. So she's definitely someone to look out for. I know Miriam's concentrating on CrossFit, so she might not be the one to do, but Miriam's going to outstation everybody. It's just whether she can keep up on the runs. And this race is going to be run, I think it's going to be run on the women's side extremely differently than the other races we've watched this year. The women are used to having, 1, 2, 3, like a couple that go out hard and it settles in. And usually the race can be determined early on. Whereas the men's race usually doesn't. The men's race can play out for a long time, and they try to I feel like a lot of these women, I heard them on another podcast, some of them on another podcast, and they're all like, oh, I'm a back half racer. I'm a back half racer. Well, not everybody can be a back half racer. So if they all think they're going to pace the front half and go in the back, it's going to turn into a fight. And it might come down to a really good finish between the lunges and the wall balls.
Who do you think? Who do you think? I'm assuming it was the Rocks Life because I know he interviewed a bunch of people. Who do you think can do that? Because we can pull up these splits and have a look if we want.
Who do I think could do what? Come from behind?
Yeah.
Well, Miriam could crush all the stations, and she wins by lunging 40 seconds faster and wall balling 30 seconds faster than everybody else, even if people are going 1 or no breaks. And out of all these women here, I think Miriam's the only one who's gone unbroken on the wall balls. So it's going to be, she could be, 20 wall balls back going into the station and come out and win.
Okay. Besides Miriam, because I don't think she was on that podcast.
No, she wasn't. I think who was on that podcast? Was it Zara and Kate? Or
I think it might have been Zara and Alina. I'd have to look it up.
Yeah, I think that's what it was.
But Anthony, you do make that great point. But if we're all conservative, that actually plays so much into Miriam's hand, and also Jade. Jade is a excellent racer from coming from behind. Kate, I think, if she sets the pace, I don't think people will keep up with her necessarily. Same with Alina, although she is saying she's more of a back half. It's interesting because as you alluded to, Anthony, if everyone holds back, it's going to be a dogfight. But if someone just heads out like Lauren and like Meg do, they could find out that they outjuice everyone initially, and no one can catch up. So it's a fascinating. Plus, you've got a margin for error with the women's race. If you head out and you're leading for the first 6 stations, but you're starting to lose pace, if you drop back to third, it doesn't matter. You've still got that place.
I think the women's race especially, if somebody comes out hot, they're going to do themselves a favor. And Kate, I think Kate Davey is somebody that could do that. She could come out and I've heard the term before, poison the well for everybody else, because if she can drag people with her that can't keep up, they can really make it tough on the rest of the field. And it could, deflate some of the other women's spirits. And maybe they don't think they can catch them because they're so far out in front at that point that they just, okay, let them go. I'm just going to go for third. And so they forget about the first place position. And that's something they got to keep in mind. Like, these women are all going to be fighting for a spot, and it really could reward some aggressive behavior in the front. But if everybody's thinking, oh, I'm going to be conservative, that plays really well into some of these other women's hands. And they just need to look for, like, this is a race. Time doesn't matter. Only placement does. So don't worry about scoring a time here.
Right.
No.
All right. Well, I wanted to dig into some of that data, but I think it's too small. So we ready to go on to the men before you want to say anything else before we go on?
I think the only thing I'd say is just to re-emphasize what we were saying about poisoning the well. I love that phrase, Anthony, because Miriam has been a force to be reckoned in for HYROX for a long time, and she started to drop behind a little bit because Meg has come on the scene. Lauren's always been hot out the gate, but if there's only one person being hot, then eventually they'll slow down because they're nothing to race against. But since Meg and Lauren have been running so fast, almost together, I know they're not always together, but because they've been racing, that's kind of knocked Miriam down, because I think she does sometimes get a little bit self-conscious about her running pace, and that's probably why she hasn't placed as highly as we'd imagine. So it is fascinating. I can't wait for it on Sunday. I honestly can't wait for this race.
Yeah. I agree. I think it could really go different way. Who do you guys have? Who are you picking? Are you guys picking anybody to qualify a top 3? No particular order.
Well, now I have to go back.
Got a bit of
an
I've got an easy one, which no one will criticize me for. So I'm going Jade, Zara, and Kate.
Oh, there you go. 3 British, top 3.
Yeah, no one will criticize me for that, and yeah, that's how we'll go.
And I mean, yeah, Zara too. She's going to be in there. So she's been consistent in the top 15. It's going to be an exciting race for a lot of these women that don't have the experience racing the other women of this level, this deep of a field. And I think Miriam has that experience, so she's going to have a little advantage there.
What do we know about Sika? I don't even know if that's how you say it. I assume that's how you say it.
I think she's been at, I want to say 1 or 2 majors, Anthony. I'd need to pull up the stats.
I think she was at Chicago and Stockholm, and she did better at Stockholm than Chicago.
Yeah, I don't even remember seeing her. I'm sure I have.
No, yeah, Sika. She has been primarily a doubles racer. I think she holds. I want to say she holds a record in something. Is she one of Team Mizon?
Yes,
I think she's Spanish, right?
My Protein, maybe Mizone also, but it says Team My Protein.
She's German. It's
German.
My Protein DE, which is Deutsch. So yeah, and she has wine later, so she suddenly she might become a new pick.
Lift now, wine later. Good.
All right, let's hop
Almost
over
as good as
to
positive splits.
let's go over to Le Men. And as you can see here, the men that we currently have coming to LA are Megiddo, Colin, and Eric. Might be more based on what happens. But here's what we have right now for Cologne, or as they call it over there, Köln, Koln with the umlaut. Can you guys see that okay? I have it at 180%.
Yeah. So,
so once again, we have their best time and where they got it. Although it's becoming less important. It used to be really like, oh, well, that's a fucking Fugazi course. Less and less, but I still thought important to put up there where they scored. Also, let you know if it was an elite race, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. I mean, looking at the list, you can see there's a lot of not only people that qualified for the World Championships last year, world record, or I mean, yeah, Tobias. Tobias is the only person to ever hold the world record since Hunter took it. So Tobias, I mean, back in 2022, Tobias had it for 21 days. And then you got Lucas, who's
I heard there was some controversy, though, when he had to drop the belt. I heard there was some controversy around that.
When he had to drop the belt?
Yeah, because he was switching federations.
No. So that's another thing. I mean, we might get to
Ian,
it.
you're not Ian. I'm not getting even a smile out of Ian. What is going on, man? Come on. It's still early for you.
It's late for me.
No, it's only 8:30.
That is late. I'm in my 40s now, Matt. Everything, all my childhood punishments have become adult goals. Go to bed early, not going out on a weekend. But
eat your vegetables.
Eat your vegetables because you
really
need
grains. All right, go ahead.
But anyway, getting back to Tobias.
Oh, so you asked, like, that was another thing. If we ever go back to the foolish bracket that I had on here, is that, before the 2022-2023 season for HYROX, after the whole debacle in Las Vegas where they took the weight off the sled to accommodate the Europeans, they kept that. They changed the weights. HYROX changed the weights of the sled going into the 2022 season, 2022-2023. They reduced the weight on the men's and women's pro sleds. So that's like when we saw the world records broken on the women's side 5 times in that season, on the men's side twice. Like, I mean, do we forget that? But Tobias broke Hunter's world record.
I remember that you, before I knew you that well, I mean, I'd met you, but you showed me that in Vegas that the fucking sleds were like fucked up. You were like, look, dude, here's a circle. Here's how many plates are on.
You asked me about it, and I had pictures from other events, and I was like, yeah, so the women's had, 5 55-pound plates, and if we look at Vegas, there's only 4 on there. And same like going back, they were missing a plate. And then everybody made the whole thing. Well, they made up that, well, the Europeans couldn't push it. It's a different sled. And I was like, well, this is what we deal with. And you qualify it off of time. I always thought that was funny. And if we forgot that before 2022-2023 season, they lowered the weights for the sleds.
Did they lower it, or did they just say we're including the sled and that kind of lowered it?
That's what they did, is they said the sled plus the weights equals what used to just be the weight added to the sled.
Right. Okay.
So shouldn't
the all-in weight always be what you're looking at? But shouldn't that have always been the way, the all-in weight?
Maybe not. It depends on how you count sleds. Whenever I program a sled workout, I always do it weight added to the sled.
But that's because people at different gyms might have different sleds. But if you have a competition, You're not going to
You should have the
say,
same equipment at every competition.
right. You're not going to say like, oh, it's a 180 max deadlift, but only if your bar is this. I mean, it's like the weight is the weight. It shouldn't ever be different.
Well, it used to be the weight, like in kilos, was weight added to the sled, and then they started to just say, "Oh, it's weight plus the sled equals
Right,
this
but
total
that's what they
weight."
should have done from day one. That's all I'm saying. But go ahead.
Yeah.
All right. So let's get back to who we like, based on these names. I think that you said everyone here was in the Elite 15 last year. The first like
Not
six
everyone.
people. Sorry, the
Yeah,
first six
like
people.
the top 1, 2, 3, 4, down from JK to Jonathan Wynn. Afan was not, but Florian was. Peter Schiller's been in the World Championships before. Like, so there's a lot of high level competition here.
Resolute Coffee, sponsor of this program in the past, and we drink it whether they're a sponsor or not because we fucking love them. Agrees with Matt. Thank you, Resolute Coffee. Yeah. So these guys at the bottom, let's just talk about them, right? Because why not? So Aitor, never heard of this gentleman before. Aitor, wow. Try that one, Ian.
I believe he is Spanish, and he's a good racer. He's done.
I wanted you to read the name.
Yeah, I've learned a long time never to read a name that I'm never going to pronounce in Month for Sundays.
Okay, Month Sundays. Aitor
Sundays.
Lizarazu Hormia, who I hadn't heard of prior to this. Eugenio Bianchi, Jake Williamson, Harry Thompson. So the bottom four, do we think any four of those could pop up and deliver, let's say, a top 5 finish out of this field?
Top 5?
Sure.
Top 5, maybe. I think if this was going to be the women's race again with the 3 qualifying spots, I'd be feeling a little bit better for their chances because Eugenio and Jake can run. They can absolutely set that pace and dare everyone to catch up to them. But that's a risky strategy when you're going for one spot.
Ooh, look at that. Oh, look at that.
That's better.
I haven't used this technology in so long. Sorry, guys.
But yeah,
it's been a minute.
So like you're saying though, Ian, I think that's how this race is going to have to be run. Like, you have to run for first now. So I think those bottom 4 guys on that list, they have a chance at top 5, like Matt asked, because I think there's going to be blowups. There has to be blowups because basically this race is first place or bust. And that's how you're going to have to approach it for these guys. Like, because
absolutely,
in terms of finishing this race, second place is as good as 10th.
So then who most likely, do we know enough about these gentlemen? Who is most likely to just say, fuck it, we ball, and, drop the paperwork on Friday and just says, I'm just going to send it and see what happens. I don't care if I blow up.
You want to know what's going to happen in the first 300 to 400 meters of this race? Lucas Storath is going to look like a bat out of hell and absolutely sprint. And that's what he did at the 2 majors he was at. Like, the guy is fast and he's going to come out hot. And every race we've seen him run in, he gets a little bit further in the race before he starts to fall back. And so that's going to be the question of what happens. Personally, for me, I think James Kelly is going to take this race. And it's not just because I coach him. I think he's doing fantastic right now. He's going to do some great things.
James,
well, go ahead.
I have to agree with you, but I kind of, 1, I think he can do it, and 2, I so want him to do it. No one deserves number 1. I feel sorry for all the guys I know on this list who also know me. I wish you all the best. I hope you have a great race. But James is kind of like the choice you want because he's been so close at every single major. Surely this has to be his time. Surely.
Yeah. Hey, I can tell you, man, he's ready, he's prepared, and it's going to be a lot of fun to watch him.
Have you gone on a run with him recently?
I live in a different country than him.
Okay. All right. Then you don't really know. Yeah, I mean, he's obviously the favorite in this group, and I would say it's also his race to lose. And I also think he can handle the pressure. Some people might crack under that.
I don't know if
he's really experienced at running in the big races, so I think he'll rise to the occasion.
So I don't know if he'd be the favorite, but I know where he's at, just because. So in both the majors that Lucas has run, Lucas and James in Vienna, they tied going across the finish line. And in DC, Lucas was like 15 seconds ahead. And then Tobias, you don't want to count out Tobias.
Isn't it Tobias?
It's Tobias.
Who calls him Tobias? Does he call himself that?
Calls himself,
I've heard him called Toby.
Toby. He calls himself Tobias. We'll call him Toby.
Toby. Toby.
So
let's go with Toby then.
Toby beat both of them in Vienna by about 15 seconds. So I think you really got to look at those three as a whole. I heard John Wynn sounds like he's really ready, really fit right now, and was sick earlier in the season going into some races. So, you're going to have to contend with him. And same thing for Geoffrey Voisin. Like, they aren't going to be easy races. This isn't going to be an easy race. But just like this race, it's that whole poison the well thing. Somebody has to win. And I think James is going to make it. It's him.
Okay. Quick note. This just in. Ian, your stock goes up. I just heard back from Anta. LA, 100%. She's in. Flights booked.
Cool. I must have read that somewhere.
Out.
Apparently, I do my research. Cool. Yeah, James is the sentimental choice. I think of all of these racers, the one I'm most curious about to see how he gets on is Harry Thompson, because he possibly has the least experience in this kind of race because he's not been at a major. He has raced against a lot of these racers, but only say 2 or 3 at a time. I'm curious to see how he gets on because he is a good racer who flies under the radar.
How would you rate him against Harry Kane and Harry Maguire?
Oh, in terms of favorite Harrys,
yes, favorite Harrys.
We need. Well, he's a little bit better than that Harry who currently lives in California. But anyway, against Harry Kane, yeah, I'll definitely take Harry Thompson over Harry Kane. Harry Thompson's a northern lad, so he's a lot better than Harry Kane.
What about Harry Maguire?
Harry Maguire, probably Thompson still. It's tougher choice, but Thompson.
What about over Potter?
Ian.
I reckon Harry Potter could do 100 wall balls unbroken. I reckon.
And he'd be fast on that firebolt, I got to tell you.
Ian, I never watched football, or as we call it, soccer, my whole life. And now I have a 10-year-old who is like beyond obsessed. Like the amount of knowledge he has, I try to compare it to the NFL knowledge I had as a kid. And I feel like it's even more because in the NFL, it was just one league, right? And he knows everything about everything. So anytime I ever see any clip or I pull something up, I'm like, River, do you know what this is? He knows the history. He knows dude, Premier League, La Liga, Bundesliga, like just everything. He knows everything and everybody. So I know who Harry Maguire is.
I imagine you do. Who does River support, by the way, in Premier League?
Well, I just found out he loves City.
Oh gosh, we could have we could have set you up while you were over here. We could have easily got him a City shirt.
Well, I definitely got to get him some stuff. But when I was and then we watched a match on Saturday. We watched a match, and they crushed him. It was full one. When I was in Amsterdam, I bought him a Netherlands jersey, and so now he likes them a lot too because I've got him the shirt, right? But yeah, definitely, it would be a dream, I think, if next time I go over there, I can bring him and take him to a game, take him to a match. But anyway, let's stay focused.
We got a question from Resolute Coffee. How many men drop from going harder than they have ever gone before? It's going to be fireworks from the gate? And I agree. I think, yes, somebody somewhere is going to drop because they are going to be frenzied. Everybody's going to want the lead, thinking they need to keep it. I think whoever can maintain that highest pace well under control and then strike is going to be, has to be the favorite, has to be the one that'll win.
I disagree with that. It's balls to the wall time, isn't it? I don't even know if that's a phrase over him.
Not for wall balls, but balls to the wall time. So, Ian, let us know what your current plan, and I say plan with a small p, not a big P. What is your small p plan so that folks can watch this at home?
At the moment, I believe Greg from the wonderful Rocks Live podcast is trying to set up a watch along, dependent, of course, on getting someone out there with a phone, feeding us back some footage. So that will be, I believe, on his YouTube. I will share all the details on our Instagram, which is at uk.hxr. It'll probably also be on his Rocks Life Instagram as well. So we're going to try and do the men's race and the women's race, probably just the first wave, because here's an interesting thing. It is the pro race as a whole. So there could be a complete unknown who lines up in the last wave, runs a 55-minute PB and takes first place. I don't see it happening.
But as far as live streams go, I maybe, I mean, it's going on at 4 a.m. my time, but JK's girlfriend, fiance, I don't know what Georgie is to him, actually. I should ask him. She might live stream JK's race, like just him. So you might be able to catch it there if she's able to. But she's also racing herself that day, so no pressure if she doesn't.
Yeah, we do have a camera person subject to when their race is on, because I think they might be running doubles. So a lot depends on when their wave is. Like if they're in the first doubles wave, it might be close at the end. Or if they're in a later doubles wave, they should be able to get it us for the whole race.
The men's race starts 70 minutes after the last doubles heat, so it'll probably be done if it's a men's doubles. The women's race starts 50 minutes after the last doubles heat, so it probably won't be.
It's the pro doubles.
Ian, are you saying they because that's the pronoun they choose, because it's more than one person, or because you want it to remain a mystery, or all of the above?
Mainly because I tend to just say they for the sake of it, and I don't want to name the person. So just in case it's not who we've currently got lined up, people don't know who I'm talking about. Yeah, exactly.
Okay. All right. There's a
couple
I will
more say.
Topics. Go ahead.
Sorry, Matt. What I will say is please do not expect major level quality here. It will be streaming on a phone. There's a potential that, depending on how many people are using 4G or the Wi-Fi, there's a potential it will look spotty, like some of the old videos that Matt had to put out and we had to put out. But me and Greg, if it comes off, we will do our best to keep you entertained. That's all we can promise you.
It's not a big production budget, but if we can get just some sort of live video to be able to watch it, that would be fantastic. I mean, I know here in the States, for me, it's at 4 a.m., the men's race, and like 2 or 3 a.m. the women's race. So, you know, they might be waking up just to watch it or waking up just to see the results.
Yeah, I'll be waking up to see the results. I will not be waking up early.
Yeah, don't wake up if you are on the West Coast or Mountain Time, like Anthony is. Please don't wake up to get mad. Watch it if you want to watch it knowing that the stream could go down at any moment, because we are working with a budget of 0. I think the budget might be a coffee and donut.
All right. So listen, we got a couple other things to get to, and we're already hour in. So I want to get to, before we get to the Goofy Games re-bracket, I want to talk to you about something that's adjacent, which is this year's Hybricon, which I just looked up yesterday. And it brings up another podcast I listened to with Dave Claxton and Rich Ryan called Is It Hybrid? And what I'm going to do with, I think, my friend Anthony, is I'm going to create, I'm imagining some sort of decision tree, like, does it have this? Yes. Does it have this? No. Does it have this? No. You're a CrossFit event. Does it have this? Yes. Does it have this? Yes. Does it this? No. You're a fucking spaceship, you know, whatever. And you get like, here's what we think a hybrid event is. So lots of different opinions, and it won't be perfect, but I like the general idea of a decision tree. But I looked at the Hybricon games, which I guess we're officially all in on, no longer calling it Battle Bunker. And you know what a fan we are of hybrid sports here, right? Here to hybrid sports, right? And went to I was part of the live stream team for the first Battle Bunker. I personally went to the 2 Battle Bunker qualifiers last year and covered those. This year he's doing it an even weirder way than just sign up and do it. He said you have to be, he is Austin. I'm going to say they, Austin and Hunter. They said you have to do it at an affiliate gym, which works when you're CrossFit and you have thousands of gyms, and doesn't work when you just ask people to sign up. So it's pretty limiting. So for example, if I wanted to go do this event, I asked him, said, hey, well, can I get a local gym to do this? And he said, no, you're too late. And I thought, well, why? Why not let people sign up? I mean, you got to cut it at some point, but this was 2 weeks ago. And if it goes all the way to the end of April, why not let gyms sign up? Like, you need all the help you can get. I'm not driving 5 hours to do the thing. So that to me was a miss. And then I saw the workouts and I didn't look closely. And then I looked at the workouts, and it's a bunch of lifting and a 1 mile run. That, my friend, is a CrossFit event. I would not call this a hybrid event. It looks basically like a CrossFit comp. I don't know any other way to call it. Anthony, your thoughts?
So before we get into the negatives of it, I want to say some positives.
Okay.
I thought year one was the events themselves were good. I really liked the rucking into rowing into running. It's just year one, they had their technical inexperience with the rowers and the horrid scoring. But besides that,
the events were good, but the scoring and Hunter's lack of transparency and lack of openness when having the discussion around the transparency was the issue. But the event itself was great. Yes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I went back and rescored it after we heard his analysis of what the scores were, and none of Lauren's scores were right. And you actually reseed the top 3, but it doesn't matter now. I think last year we loved the pool events. I think the pool event is actually really good. I think even the Bob, the other pool events were great. I think incorporating a pool event.
I gotta move. Keep talking. I gotta move.
I think incorporating the pool and swimming and other water stuff into these events is a fantastic idea. And I think the Bob test was fine because Austin's a military guy and Battle Bunker is part of his ethos. So the military is part of it. You know that going in. And so a Bob test is okay to have as a test. And it's a pass-fail test. It wasn't like, tons of points for it. It was just pass-fail. So that's okay to have. The regional qualifier events last year were also good. it was more CrossFit than it was hybrid, but it was in line with the first stage, the qualifying stage that they had online. So it was what people expected to get out of the event. So that regional qualifier last year was fine. The things that I'm not like thrilled about. So this year's qualifier actually looks like it has a good mix of events with like strength and running, but some of the things that we really disagreed with last year are, I disagree with events that are not a test of strength or fitness, but it's completely body size dependent. When you have untrained and unskilled or versus people that are experienced in wrestling, combat, tug of war, pugil sticks, it is too high a risk of injuries due to size differences and skill levels. On the women's side, for example, the athletes vary from 5'1" to 6'2", and there's over a 50-pound difference. There's no way, even if the person that's smaller is the most skilled and the person that's heavier is unskilled, the person bigger is going to win. It's not a matter of fitness or strength. It's a matter of body size. And I don't agree with those as events. And that type of event was not in line with what got him to that point in the competition in the first place, right? There was no wrestling, there was no pugil sticks, tug of war, anything like that prior to that final stage where all of a sudden, okay, it's based on body composition. I was a combat athlete for 14 years. Like I wrestled in college and all through everything. Like I love wrestling. I think it's a fantastic display of fitness, and I think the fighters and everything are some of the most fit people in the world, but it doesn't belong in a fitness competition, hybrid or CrossFit or anything like that. And so there's just that part. And then also just the other thing is like, in order for where we're at to reach one of the qualifying events for this year's Hybricon, we would have to take a 12-hour drive or a 3-hour flight. So that's not going to happen. Because especially since last year, we traveled to the regional event to qualify, and for the final event, they still sent out invites to people who didn't do stage 1 or 2. The people,
right? The girl that came in second to Carly didn't do the qualifiers at all.
Yeah, they didn't do qualifiers at all. So like, why would we travel now if you're just going to send out events to the final? Like that's not going to happen.
I just wish I understood the logic of like you have to, I mean, if it's because of judging, again, it doesn't really, you're trusting those judges just as much as any, again, there's no like L1 or something to fall back on, which CrossFit does. But again, CrossFit has literally thousands of events. And here he has it listed like by state. And it's like, oh, okay. So if I live in New York and I want to drive 200 miles, it just doesn't, again. And then I thought, okay, well, I'll help. I'll get an event here in Metro Atlanta, or I'll even pick one of the burbs. Like, hey, can I go to one of these? He's like, no, we're full. And I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, well, we had to cut it off. And it's like, but it goes through April. Why can't in middle of March can I pick one for the middle of it anyway? So yeah, he keeps doing it in a way that keeps the pool really small. And it seems like you want to keep it open. You want to be an open system to bring people in so you can market your event. When you've got how many years in and you're giving away tens of thousands of dollars, like in his mind where he wants it to go, yeah, then invite only in a few locations. But here, like, get as many people in as possible.
Yeah.
I can't hear you, Ian.
Can't hear you, Ian.
Really? Can you not
Sounds like you're underwater.
Sounds like you're really underwater.
Okay, try again.
A little bit better, yeah.
That's weird. Sorry about that. I don't know. Am I better?
Yes, now you're good.
Don't even know what happened there. I was saying it's not like your HYROX. It's not like you're selling out events on the first day of entry. It is not a exclusive event that everyone wants to do. It's. I agree with you, Matt. I would have stayed virtual. I'd have stayed virtual and encouraged as many people as possible to do it. and to get a massive pool, because you're already behind the 8 ball. Because, like Anthony said, last year for your finals, you had to invite a lot of people who possibly didn't know what Hybricon was until they got your email.
Yeah, and so I looked at this year's leaderboard, and the men were a lot of strength guys, kind of the same guys that did well at his last event, right? Philip Muscarella, who's a CrossFit guy, right? And then
who lives right there next to where they're at, and that's why he does it.
Right, and the same thing with that girl. She's the leader, I think, on the women's side. Who's that woman's name? I'm sorry. She's a CrossFitter.
Is it Emily Rethwell?
Yes. Same thing. So again, like I know that he's got big dreams and big goals, and I'm a fan of that, of Austin putting together something really cool. And I wish I understood his logic of design. But no, I'm not. I also think it's a bunch of lifts and a 1 mile run. Like I just feel like there's something else he could have done to make it slightly more hybrid.
That's like, if you want to have a hybrid event, this is one thing you talked about, your tree, your decision tree. Here's something that should be on it. Is there a max lift or a 1 rep max, 5 rep max, 3 rep max? Okay, it's not hybrid. That's pretty simple. Yes, there should be strength components. You should have to have certain strength, but if you're doing rep maxes on anything, it's not a hybrid event.
Well, what about, like, I think what's his name had one, right? Like Rally the Valley had 1 max lift, and then the rest of them were rep based.
You can't have the opposite end of the spectrum. A 1 rep max or even a 3 rep max is extreme into the spectrum of strength, right? How would you offset that? Because somebody who's bigger, right, body composition, everything is inclined to that direction. The only other way to offset that is like, okay, well, you got to go run a 3-hour marathon now. And
hey, Spartan Games. Let's do Spartan Games.
Exactly.
Listen, we're going to get LaRuta. You got to do a 6-hour minimum on the bike, but you can stop at 2.5.
It's like people are like, oh, well, I can't lift that weight. And it's like, and the same people who can lift that weight are like, well, I can't run that fast. And it's like, exactly. So why are we going so heavy? Why are we skewing like so far? That's what CrossFit does, is it skews so far towards strength.
Anthony, did you, sorry to interrupt, did you follow Affix at all when Matt was over here?
Not very much. There was something else going on that I was watching instead of that weekend. I don't remember what it was.
How dare you? All the content I put out.
I just remember something else was happening.
No, but yeah, Affix does that. It does a rep max in their strength zone, but they then balance that out with having an endurance zone, which is 5K run with your partner doing a 1K skier, 2K row, and a 5K bike, and then they have a Metcon sort of WOD at the end of it. So, and the strength made up 25%.
So that makes sense. The only thing I'd say about that is, if your endurance event is the machines and it's less than 2 hours, it's not comparable, because the same person who's strong is going to do better on the machines. There has to be some sort of tax or some sort of detriment to body size, because body size is an advantage in strength. It's not an advantage in running. It's not really an advantage in, like, your composition is a little bit in swimming. So it's got to be something more along those lines, because on a bike, you're stronger, you're bigger, you produce more power. On the rower, same thing. On the ski erg, same thing. So if you're going to have a strength event, you need to have a endurance that is detrimental.
But that just makes it. But if that were the case, then it would be all huge people that do well, and that's not who does well at those events. The biggest guys came in usually second or third, but people that were more well-rounded, men and women, would do better on the machines. Like, you're just saying, like, some big, huge guy can just do this and win the erg with no form and no.
It depends on the duration of the erg too. Like
Well,
that's why I was like,
so the whole
hard?
set. What's the whole thing? 25 minutes? I forget. Do you remember?
I don't
Ian?
know.
I'm asking you.
Yeah, you 25 minutes on the endurance to cover your 5K, to cover all the other ergs. And I think Metcon, you have up to 20 minutes, but most people doing about 10 to 12.
Right.
And I think you only have 8 minutes to do your lifts.
Right. And what I do like about it is there was a piece of this conversation that Dave and Rich were having about, could I ask my neighbor to do it? Right. So if it's lift this thing over your head, yes. If it's snatch, it's like, no. What is that? Right. So in that regard, that's what I like about athletics, is that they make it that the open, you could just do the bar, right? And like just do that without being like a pro, and then you can get people to try it, and then they can get better, etc. So for the this year they have, I think, pull-ups, and then for the open it's like the hang, right? So I kind of like that they do it that way. But I don't know who else is that was thumbs up was for Anthony. I don't know who else is going to come and do it. But if we look at the leaderboard now on the let's take a quick peek. Hybricon. Again, I don't know why he's going with Hybricon. I think Battle Bunker was a better name.
Hybricon sounds something from the 80s. I'm fairly sure there was a computer game called Hybricon.
Qualifier sign up. Compete 2024. Come on, where's this fucking thing? So yeah, so manually choose locations. Here's all the gyms, right? So it's like 20 gyms over the entire thing of North America.
Wasn't there one in Europe, maybe? I think
there's one in UK, one in France, one in Brazil. CrossFit Wessex. Do you know where that is?
CrossFit. No, I have no clue. Where I could maybe find Wessex on a map, but it's not a gym I'm familiar with.
All right. We on the same. Hang on. What the fuck? Hang on. Sorry. Really bad at this. Where we go? Where are we going, mate? Where are we going? Present. I haven't used this thing in a long time. Okay, here we go. So I'll get there the long way. I'll go through here. Hybricon. Yeah, if you want to get the best athletes, right? All right, so you got Carly in the lead with Emily, and then old Twee Swizzle. Look at Taylor.
Well done, Taylor.
Crushing it. Because we gotta have bad love. Because we used to have bad blood. Hey, and then Corinna Perkins. That's formerly the artist formerly known as Corinna Coffin. Is married now. She's Corinna Perkins. And then on the dude side.
So Taylor Swift is currently beating Corinna.
Yes, she's crushing it.
It's all that working out she's doing with Travis Kelce.
Right. So here's Philip, Aston, and Michael, a bunch of strong dudes that are leading this. So yeah, there's not really that. And again, this is early on. I don't know how many people they're going to get. We've still got 2 more weeks. It looks like.
Are they allowed to, if you don't think you did well at this one, can like
try again?
Can Cole Schwartz go to another one and improve his scores?
I don't see why not. I mean, I don't make up the rules, but yeah, why wouldn't he be able to? If there's, as long as you go to another qualified location.
Well,
So here's the map. Where did it go?
I mean, I don't know where their locations are at, but it seems like you'd want it would have to be so many. Yeah, that's what you're showing now is which ones.
Yeah,
You'd
so
have an
if you
easier
lived-
time if you lived in Hawaii.
You would have an
Yeah.
easier time if you lived in the bottommost parallel of the United States. It looks like we're heavy down here.
Even in Mexico.
So yeah, I've got nothing near me.
Yeah.
The only one in Canada looks like it's in the place where no one from Canada lives.
Yeah. So the whole Pacific Northwest had nothing either.
Yeah. So again, we wish them luck. Can we move into the
Foolish
goofy,
games?
the foolish games?
Foolish. Not goofy, because goofy I think is different. I think Bracken made a good point, or Rich made a good point to Bracken that it's not the goofiness of it, because the goofiness, we like the goofy games. They're funny, they're fun. It's which decisions were foolish.
All right. Well, I'm not sure how this is going to work because I have this in Canva and I thought I could get it without being in Canva, but I can't. So this is probably the best we're going to do. Can we read that at all? Let's drop.
Read that?
Not really.
Let's drop this. Hang on.
Can you get rid of that panel on the left side? Yeah, there's an arrow button. Just click that over.
Oh, shoot. There we go. How
about the down? Click the bottom down button.
So good having you here. Where's the bottom?
It's in the middle of the bottom panel. There you go. Now zoom in.
How we doing?
That looks better.
Pretty good. All right. So up here, I've got Elite 12 and not paying. Elite 12 because we already discussed it, and not paying because that's not foolish. That's just fucked up. It's just fucked up to not pay people. It shouldn't be anywhere in this. It should have won their other thing, and it didn't. It didn't even win that, but it should be. So I'm taking those two off the board. All right. Bye. Okay. So now you've got what I'm going to call the ridiculous top 10. So I picked what I thought were the most ridiculous. Okay. I've already changed foolish to ridiculous. And I didn't include everything because I wanted to keep our list relatively simple. So I boiled it down to 10. Okay. So we've got DEKA Gym Records, Hot Rig at the Grit Games, Abu Dhabi Tent Debacle, Spartan Arbitrary Penalties, Go Ruck Wrestling Final, Laser Pistols, Bob Test Hybricon, 1 year of the Spartan 3K, which is a slight differentiation on what they had for it. They had 2 levels of 1K, and then the third level is a 3K. I like just only having it for a year as a concept. HYROX Incongruent Courses and the Battle Frog Fiesta Bowl. Those are my 10. And that's what we're dealing with. So if you disagree with those 10, that's fine. But for this, where would you like to start? You want to start at 10 and see if we can work our way up?
Did you not include their... Oh, you have the random Spartan penalties there. I see that. Okay. And you didn't think the Abu Dhabi tent sleeping deserved to be on there? Oh, you got that.
It is on here.
I was just reading through them. So I had 6 others that weren't on their list that I was just like, these could have been in place of some. I'll just mention them. They don't have to be part of our top 10.
They might if I like them more than I like any of these.
They're all hybrid.
Okay.
And I thought one of the things, the foolish, we'll start with the 2 HYROX ones. HYROX for moving weight from the sleds at the 2022 World Championship. I thought that was foolish.
Okay.
Next. And then that, I feel like that should have been one of their things in the bracket. The other one was HYROX lightening the sleds after the 2022 season. Like, I don't understand why that happened. And I get now, like after we talked about it, that it was just to make the weight congruent. So it's, weight plus sled, but I still thought it changed the event a little.
Okay.
Those are the 2 I had for HYROX. The other one I have is any memory test at any event. I always think it's kind of foolish. I know
Okay.
Spartan used to do it, and like it just any memory test at any event is something foolish. Any hybrid event, anything that calls themselves a hybrid event and has a 1 rep max lift or a max lift, that's
Okay.
foolish. The scoring system from the 2022 Battle Bunker or Hybricon games, that was foolish. And the last one that I had was I think 2023 GoRuck. After they did all these events and the people were the top 8, the way they seeded it, the number 1 and number 2 people from the whole prior events went against each other in the semifinals. They didn't bracket it correctly. So
Okay.
those were my like those maybe should have been included on these guys' bracket.
All right. I almost gave you the GoRuck one, but I just have GoRuck as a wrestling final
Yeah,
in
and
there. And I'm gonna say that
fine too. Because I told you earlier, like I don't agree with those in hybrid events.
and I still think that the Bob test is stupider and more ridiculous, even though they told him it ahead of time.
Yeah.
I
If you're
still
gonna
think
leave
it
that
was.
on there, I'm gonna vote for that being number 10.
Already?
Yeah, if you're gonna leave the Bob, just out of those 10, the Bob test is the least foolish.
Okay. This will be a democratic process. Ian, what do you say?
Actually, slightly disagree. I'd say laser pistols, not because I don't think they're necessarily foolish, but at least I could see the thought process. They're looking to team up with Pentathlon. It kind of made sense. So I would put that at 10, but probably Bob Test is down there as well. So I'd probably 9 for me. But yeah. What about you, Matt?
I'm gonna agree with Anthony. I'm gonna put hybrid. Actually, you know what? I think laser's dumber. Nope. I think Bob test is dumber. So I'll put that there. Wait a minute. Which one's? It's the most ridiculous to the least ridiculous. So now I'm
Yeah.
confused by my own.
So
my own system.
number 10 would be the least foolish. Like you can see, there's a reason behind it.
All right. I'm gonna agree with him then. I'm gonna agree with what's his name?
I think they're probably 9 and 9A. Yeah, I
Right.
can see.
I would agree.
But along that line, listening to that foolish bracket, I kind of agree with what Bracken said about the Battle Frog Fiesta Bowl. There was a precedent behind that. There was a reason to do that. So that would also be low. So I would vote that number 8.
I could not disagree with you more. Battle Frog to me, why Battle Frog is so high, right? It could be 1 or 2, I think. I have my own idea what I think is 1, but I don't want to get ahead of myself. I want to spoil it. But the reason Battle Frog should be so high is because yes, there's precedent that people do it, but from soup to nuts, the idea of doing it, spending the money, and then seeing that it didn't help sales and that it did eventually lead to the crash of the entire company, to me is why it's so high.
Well, it's also because nobody understood what Battle Frog was after the commercials. I think the commercials were bad, but sponsoring something that got in front of so many people wasn't a bad idea.
Well, again, it's like we discussed at the time. If your goal was to get people to Google what is Battle Frog, then it was a success. But unfortunately, that's not a good goal. You need people to be like, cool, what's a Battle Frog race? Do I want to do one? But because the commercial itself was so bad, like all of it together puts it way at the top for me. What do you say, Ian? What would you put Battle Frog?
Probably around the middle. I can agree with Anthony that I don't think it's an abhorrent because you're rolling the dice, you're trying something. But
I guess for now.
It comes down to like, were they dying before that and this was a last ditch effort, or were they healthy and if they hadn't done that, they would have survived?
Well, they never broke like they were averaging like 1,000 people, which is more than a mom and pop, but not for the kind of money they were spending. So they were just doing what they were doing, and then they decided to do this.
So I guess we need to define what is foolish to us, because to me, foolish is something that like could have been easily fixed, but was just ignored, or like there could have been a an easy or positive fix and somebody overlooked something or somebody just didn't do their research.
But I don't think there's things that have like, oh, we could have fixed that, like the hot rig at Grit Games, but you can't compare that to the Fiesta Bowl or even the Bob test. Like, it's not about could you have fixed this easily. It's just what was the thing.
If the decision, I base it off the decision. Like if the decision for the Fiesta Bowl was because they were in dire need of more people and without it, they would have died anyway, and it just accelerated that, then it was a kind of like a good last minute decision to try to do it. But if like they were healthy and they made that decision and then that's what killed them, that was really foolish. So
nothing was gonna save them. Definitely, certainly not that. That's how I see it.
So if nothing was gonna save them anyway, and it was a last ditch effort, it's not as foolish as I think some of these other things.
Yeah. My view is I kind of think Battlefrog came down to cool. We have this opportunity, and you can never take away from the owners that they sponsored a bowl game. That is kind of cool. Even if it's an ego thing, it is kind of cool being able to say, once upon a time, you sponsored the Fiesta Bowl.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess go ahead.
Yeah. I was going to say, could we put Hot Rig Grit Games? For me, that's a 7 or 8. It's one of them, but I don't think it's necessarily foolish because I don't think they caused it. I know it when I was listening to them on the Race Brain, it just sounded a little bit whiny on that. But how dare it be hot?
Well,
I don't know.
What I saw about that is that they had the opportunity because they saw it was hot the day before. They had the opportunity to fix it and didn't. And so that's pretty foolish. You didn't fix it. But
where would you put it?
Like again, just because it's hot. But if it's hot and you know it's hot, why not let people wear gloves? Like there was a fix for that, and it wasn't taken into account. One thing I just noticed though is that you don't have the tug of war from Alpha Warrior on here, which was absolutely foolish. So
would you put it above any of these?
What?
8, 9, or 10? Well, if we have the bottom 3 already, if you wouldn't put it above that, then I wouldn't add it.
I think the tug of war of Alpha Warrior, it might have been one of the most foolish because that changed the event. Like Carly had a 3+ minute lead, and then she has to wins the tug of war, and only gets a 10-second lead into the obstacle course.
I think that's equally to me, that's equally as foolish as a big part of our scoring is this rig that clearly we're not prepared to handle. And yes, we could have fixed it and chose not to. Like, to
agree.
me, those are equal. Those are equal.
So, okay.
So we'll go hot rig / so it's a tie between the hot rig / what it wasn't even a tug of war. What do you call it?
Yeah, it was like a gator
plate.
roll. Yeah.
Tug-o plate.
Tug of rope, whatever they did.
It was
like
it was a weird thing.
Yeah.
All right. It seems like I don't have 10 things, but we do. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay. DEKA Gym Records, I think it's got to be on this side of things. Don't you think? In the top half?
Yeah. Because I mean,
just so people know what we're talking about, just so we know people know what we're talking about, the idea that you can do a DEKA mile or strong or teams mile or team strong or GoRuck team mile or strong GoRuck in your own gym where the setups are completely different and the scoring is completely there's no transparency around who's counting your reps, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know a better way to do it because it's just the integrity of the people hosting and whether they're judging. And we already know people have issues judging and no repping people or calling them out on their stuff, because people get fired up about it. But you have to be a stern judge. And if it's not going to be consistent, then just don't have records for it. Like that, maybe there's not a record unless you're at an official event.
Okay. Other ones left. What are the two which should go in that 6, 7, 8 spot?
Well, I mean, here are my votes for the top ones. Well, shoot, actually, these three are all 1 year of Spartan 3K, Spartan arbitrary penalties, and Go Ruck Wrestling. To me, are the top three.
Yeah, those are top three. Those are definitely top three.
So and now we're left with. Go ahead.
Their list wasn't 1 year of Spartan 3K. It was that you qualified for a 3K race by running 2 1Ks.
Right, but I don't like that. I think the whole 3K itself was pretty cool. Just even if you did it that way, but then it was like, let's move all in for it. And I kept saying it might change next year, guys. I'm not saying it's going to, but I wouldn't be surprised if they just scrapped it, and they did. So to me, that's the sillier part, the foolisher part, the ridiculous part about it. So let's focus on these two then, to round out our bottom 6 through 10, or HYROX courses being extremely, is that the right word? Incongruent?
Inconsistent. So on that, the problem is I just don't have a fix. If I had a fix that could make that, like, obviously, if we just did this, then it would be so much better. Then
you're so focused on that, though. You're so focused on the idea of, is there a fix for it?
Well, that's because, I mean, if it would be more foolish if there was an easy fix for it, because then why don't you implement the fix? But since there's not an easy fix for it, I could see that being like 6 or 7, just because, like, I mean, they say they do the friction pulley test. It'd be nice if they did it on every single lane. I'm hoping they go out and wheel the courses to make sure they're all the same and every length is the same, but we just don't know if they actually are or not. But I don't think it's as foolish as some of these other things that you could have fixed them. Like, there were easy ways to fix them.
When it comes to HYROX course inconsistency, my view is they've tried to fix it as well as they can by making time as small a factor as they possibly can when it comes to qualifying for races. It only is now a factor for majors, and it is what it is. I agree with what you said last week, Anthony. I think we should do a 6-month rolling when it comes to times for major qualification. I'd be really happy with that. I don't think we're ever going to fix it because we can't, but I can confirm they do wheel the course because I've seen it. So every time I've been there at pre-event, they've wheeled it. Abu Dhabi, I'm happy with that at 6. That's one of them things which, it was really, really poor. Someone should have figured it out. They did fix it the next year by having it in a different venue. So well done, Spartan, for that.
Was it just somebody didn't do their research? Somebody didn't know? They didn't talk to anybody local and say, hey, are there any issues with this date? That seemed like it could have been more easily fixed and just was glossed over.
It probably was more of a what I'd call lack of communication because of different culture, because it probably was a case of they said, oh yeah, this is the anniversary of whatever major event it is, don't cancel me, I have no idea what it was, but they probably said, oh yeah, this is what happened, this is the event, and probably didn't explain what that entailed. It'd be and Spartan probably went, cool, we get to be part of this massive event. I think they said it best on the show that it would be like someone coming over to America during an event on 4th of July and having no idea that that means fireworks.
Yeah, my guess is they didn't ask enough questions up front, and then maybe they found out like a week or two before, and they're like, well, fuck, we're not going to, I mean, what are we going to do? We're choiced out on this one, right?
Yeah. So what we're
All
going to
right,
do with
so
these three.
I mean,
well,
I have my order of those three, but I want to hear your guys' first.
okay. I've got penalties 1, wrestling 2, and to me, again, kind of like it's all in. We've got 10 years. I always say 10. It's more like 12 of just getting it wrong, just every time. Like the ruling is wrong, then the fix to the ruling is wrong. To me, the fact that there's not been a rule book, and then when they have the rule book, they don't keep it. They'll be like, oh yeah, well, I know it says this, but we need to change it, so we'll update the Zendesk. We basically went on the whims of one man, Robert Coble, for about 8 of those 10 years. Watson a little bit sprinkled in there. But to me, penalties is 1 and wrestling is 2. What do you say, Ian?
I agree on penalties. The 3K and the wrestling are neck and neck for me in a way, because they're both kind of doing similar in that it's both a case of let's try something different. But based on what Anthony said earlier in the show, it is foolish putting a combat sport into a hybrid type event. So yeah, I agree with you overall, Matt, but it's very close because I think having 1 year of Spartan 3K was foolish anyway, particularly because you told them that, yeah, this may not be a great idea to do it like this.
So, Ian, just do you remember what this GoRuck wrestling final was? What they required them to do?
If I recall correctly, it was proper wrestling. It wasn't
It,
Spartan Games.
It wasn't even wrestling. It was you went until somebody tapped out. You choked them out. Just because of that, it could have been career ending or season ending for people. I have the GoRuck wrestling final as the number 1, arbitrary penalties as 2, and 1 year of Spartan 3K as 3. So I think we all have the Spartan 3K as number 3.
Yeah.
And just like some background on both these, I think I ran my first OCR in like 2011, 2010. And when I moved back to Las Vegas, a guy at the gym I went to told me his story about 2013 Spartan World Championships. He took 5th place. He crossed the line in 5th place. His name was Will.
This is what's his name.
His name was Will. He crossed the line in 5th place, and he had like taken his shirt off or something on course, or
I know exactly what happened.
He went back to retrieve his article, and they DQ'd him for leaving an item on, for not finishing the race with everything he started with.
Yeah.
And they told him afterwards when he was like sitting there eating a burger or something.
So yeah, so he finished 5th in an extremely competitive field. So it was a huge deal. I think Bracken, that was one of the years Bracken DNF'd. There was just a bunch of top racers that didn't make it. And he thought he was 5th. And then somebody ratted him out that he had dropped his pack. Yeah, it was a DQ. I mean, that's another one that gets forgotten about. But yeah, like what would be fair then, right? Like, I don't know, 10-minute penalty, something, right? But nope, score removed. You're done.
And it was the world championship. The dude was super proud of it. He was like a rodeo bronc rider or bull rider or something. And he like did some more OCRs for like the next year, but then never did an OCR after that. Just that was it. Like, and the Spartan arbitrary penalties, like I've seen some of them. I think some of them are ridiculous, especially when the person doesn't know that they get a penalty. They get penalized by a judge at like an obstacle, and then the judge radios it in and the person's gone and they don't know they have a penalty. Or like they're watching video back and, oh, you did bad on 2 burpees, or you miscounted and did 29 burpees, or you did 30 burpees, but we know we're up to one of them after the fact. And so you get an extra penalty. That is so ridiculous. But I still think the wrestling, any combat in a hybrid event is ridiculous. It's dangerous and should not be included, especially the way GoRuck did it, where it was we're going to choke you out and make you tap out for these professional fitness people. Like, do you guys remember watching Katie and Chris go at it? And Katie, like,
I
ripped Chris's head off?
remember. No, but I remember Kempson because that's the one I was worried about his neck snapping off.
Well, and then
Kempson versus Mac.
Yeah. And Mac's a big guy. And same thing, Hunter versus Newbie. Newbie's like, I feel like Newbie kind of got screwed at both GoRucks, but he like was doing really well, winning or top 2 and everything. And then he has to go wrestle Hunter. And that's the same thing I was saying earlier, where like these fitness competitions should not be dependent on body size.
Well, I mean, and the other thing, when you look at that was year 1 and then year 2, which I think is like, would go right under GoRuck Wrestling Final. Like if we could just say GoRuck Games, maybe. The next year, those guys crushed it all weekend. And then they did, okay, now you're going to face this person and do a max hold. And if you lose, you're out. So the people destroying it all weekend, right, were out. So we might want to say just GoRuck Games in general.
Well, I mean, yeah, I don't like the brackets after a long weekend of events. I don't like single elimination after a long weekend of event, because you're looking at who's the most fit overall, and then you're going to boil it down to one thing that eliminates these people. I'm not a fan of that.
Well, I think it's okay to take the top folks for a second day or the second half of a day in order to, like,
it's okay to make cuts,
to have cuts, right?
But it's not okay to be like, okay, now here's your top 8. Number 1, you've been winning all weekend. Number 8, you scraped in, but now we're going to have an event that number 8 is really good at. And number 1
right,
is just would be 3rd place at. So, number 1, you're out.
Or just had a rough event. All right, so you're going to be the tiebreaker, Ian, on number 1 here.
We include all of GoRuck, definitely GoRuck. Can we include all of GoRuck?
We can include all of GoRuck, because then we'd have to include all of Hybricon and all of what do you call it? Alpha Warrior.
That case, Spartan squeaks it because they've still not worked out what to do, but it was still incredibly foolish to have a tap or snap in an event. And I really hope that HYROX Germany isn't listening to this and thinking, you know what? Who cares about last chance qualifier? We'll just have a Royal Rumble. We'll put all the athletes in the wall ball area. Last one standing wins. And I'd probably pick James Kelly for that too.
I'm trying to see if I can get this thing to move over to the left. I can't. Well, how do we feel overall? I kind of feel like I want Battle Frog higher. I feel like, God, it was so dumb.
But if they were already on their way out, like it was the last.
You keep saying that, but it's all part of it. There's nobody had it. Listen, all of us who there were fucking Battle Frog. Matt, what do you call it?
When it comes down to it, you control the screen. So if you want to put it in 4th or 3rd, you can.
I know I control the screen, but we're having a debate here. I'm just trying to clarify. There were Battle Frog acolytes. Is that the right word?
I don't know what your sentence is going for. Yeah.
Zealot or acolyte.
Yes. And nothing they could do was wrong. Those of us that were paying attention and had a clue and weren't sucking their dick were like, we like Battle Frog. They're doing a lot of things right. But we've noticed they're still getting 800 people at some of these venues. So there was never a like, oh, it was a Hail Mary. It was just they were going along how they were going. And then a decision to do 60 races worldwide, and then a decision to give away more money than anybody else, and then a decision to, I think it was 44 races, and then a decision to a bowl game. You can't look at it like, oh, well, at least they tried something. That's not how I view it. That's my argument. What do you say, Ian? Ian, you're the tiebreaker.
put it above DEKA gym records or 1 year of Spartan. It's not more foolish than a damn wrestling match and Spartan still not being able to get the rule book. Particularly when we praise at the start of this show the fact that HYROX do keep the rules for at least a year, except if you happen to be in Vegas, because I'm guessing in Vegas there are no rules and you can just change it. Correct?
That's what it sounds like. Yeah, I mean, looking at this, I would probably take our number 8 and move that higher. But if you want to move up the Fiesta Bowl, I don't remember it at all. All I know is what you guys have told me. I don't remember the Fiesta Bowl. I don't remember them sponsoring the Fiesta Bowl. So it wasn't that impactful. But it seemed to me like if it was a last minute Hail Mary business decision, it might have been smart. But if it was just out of character and out of norm, then it's foolish and it deserves to be higher.
All right. Well, I appreciate your ability to look at things, and it definitely, there's also bias. Like I know like you were at GoRuck games, right?
Yeah.
So you saw it, right? I saw the tug of war in person, right? But I didn't see the hot plate. But anyway, anyhow, I'm pretty happy with this. Are we in agreement?
Cool.
Should we post this? Should we do a teaser? Guess what number 1 is?
Is that the same thing they had as number 1? I don't remember what won for them.
No, they had a one that I didn't want to put on here at all, which should have been number 1, which is Spartan doesn't pay people. But again, that's not goofy. That's just you fucked people, right? That's just there's nothing goofy about not paying people. Let me see. Let me look at the list. Hang on. What they had as the winner was, oh fuck, I can't find it.
Here, I'm pulling it up. I'll tell you what they had as the winner here.
Yeah, go to YouTube. Just go to YouTube. That's the easiest way to find it.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing. Yeah, they had random Spartan penalties. 1.
Oh, they did. What was number 2?
HYROX course standardization was number 2 for them.
Interesting. We have that way down at number 7.
Yeah, I'm not as well. It's because how are you going to fix it? Like offer?
Well, they have single elimination though. That's the problem. They have single elimination. They have the entire thing that we're against.
Yeah, it wasn't ranked voting. It was just single elimination.
Right. That's why you got to have what we have.
Yeah, and to be fair, HYROX course inconsistency impacted them much more than it's ever impacted any of us.
Yeah.
Somebody just messaged that they missed our stream because they watched the eclipse. Did the eclipse just happen? Did we miss it?
Yep. We did this right at the same time as the full total eclipse that was going through most of the United States today.
But it was 5 years ago that we had the real total eclipse. This was different.
No, this was a full annual total eclipse. I'll tell you here.
Didn't you and I have this exact same conversation the first time we ever recorded?
No, yeah. Last year there was an eclipse, but it still had a halo around it.
Okay, right? What was the one 5 years ago?
So the eclipse today is what's special about it? It goes all the way across America, starts in like Maine, goes all the way through several states. The Great North American Eclipse, and it's a total solar eclipse versus the one 5 years ago. Was it 5 years ago? 2019.
18 or 19.
Was a partial when viewed from the United States.
No, we had totality. Everyone was using the word totality. All right, listen, we're losing viewers. They're dropping off like flies. Thanks for listening. If you're listening, thanks for watching. Those who watch, we'll do this again next Monday. All right. We can review Cologne next Monday. Very exciting. Oh yeah, let's do that.